When I first joined the Deep Space Observation Program, I thought I understood silence. Space teaches you that. Silence measured not in seconds, but in years, centuries, distances. But nothing prepared me for the quiet that followed the discovery of 3I/ATLAS. We cataloged it as the third confirmed interstellar object to enter our solar system. The first was Oumuamua, a strange cigar-shaped visitor that spun through the inner system in 2017. The second, 2I/Borisov, looked more like a typical comet. 3I/ATLAS was supposed to be another rock, another curiosity, until we realized it was listening. At first, everything was routine. The object approached from an oblique angle above the ecliptic plane, moving faster than any comet we'd seen, around 96 kilometers per second. Its reflectivity was unusual, but nothing extraordinary. We expected to lose it within weeks. Then the light curves changed. Every 12 hours, 3I/ATLAS reflected spectrum shifted slightly, as if something on its surface was reorienting, metal catching sunlight, turning deliberately. Our models couldn't reproduce the pattern. It wasn't rotation, it was response. When I presented the data, the room went still. Someone joked that we'd found the first alien mirror. No one laughed twice. We began running constant observations. The changes followed no natural rhythm, no spin precession, no sublimation of ice. It was behavior, and behavior implies intent. I remember the first night I stayed late, staring at the signal graphs until the numbers blurred. On a whim, I pinged one of our deep space transmitters, an old test pulse used for calibration, a harmless packet of radio noise. 6 hours later, 3I/ATLAS emitted a burst of reflected energy matching that frequency almost exactly. Coincidence, the team said. Echo from the solar wind, instrumental feedback. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Over the next week, we repeated the test. Every time the same thing. Delay, response, variation. It was as if the object was experimenting with us, measuring us the way we measured it. Then came the shutdown. Orders arrived from higher up. Suspend active transmissions. Passive observation only. The reason, to avoid contamination of results. It sounded scientific, but the subtext was clear. Someone wanted quiet. That night, I downloaded every data packet I could access. I told myself it was backup protocol. In truth, I was afraid the information would vanish. 2 days later, the servers went dark for maintenance. When they came back online, half the files were missing. I still have the raw copies. The signal patterns form a sequence, binary, but not random. Every response we sent was followed by a new modulation, as though the object were learning, adapting. The intervals compressed, the signals grew denser, richer. Then, suddenly, they stopped. We thought we'd lost it, but the telescopes kept registering minute fluctuations in local space around the object. Microbursts of electromagnetic activity, far too structured to be natural noise. Something around 3I/ATLAS was active but invisible. I went to my supervisor. She listened, expression unreadable. When I finished, she said only, "You've seen more than you should." That was when I realized this wasn't a simple anomaly. A few months later, an internal memo circulated, classified as routine risk assessment. It stated that 3I/ATLAS was emitting a variable radiation field that could interfere with deep space communications. Nothing to worry about, officially. Unofficially, the memo contained one line that froze me. Field strength increases proportionally with directed observation. We were causing it to react simply by looking. For years, physics has taught us that observation changes nothing in the macroscopic world. But maybe that assumption was built on ignorance. Maybe something out there notices when consciousness turns its gaze upon it. I began dreaming about the object. In my mind, it wasn't a rock or a probe. It was a threshold, a gate folded into stone. I'd wake with equations running through my head, resonance frequencies, harmonics of light. I couldn't stop thinking that we had awakened something that measures curiosity itself. The project continued under new leadership. The data access became fragmented. Teams were reassigned. When I asked questions, the answers were polite, but empty. Focus on your portion, doctor. Still, whispers spread through the labs. A technician claimed the magnetometers near the dish array spiked every time 3I/ATLAS crossed our network's line of sight. Another said a remote telescope in Chile detected a return signal, one that appeared before the outgoing ping, as if time itself had inverted. You learn not to ask for proof. Proof has a way of disappearing. Eventually, I left the program. Officially, I took a position teaching astrophysics. Unofficially, I was told to take a sabbatical, but I can't let it go. I still track 3I/ATLAS with amateur observatories. It's leaving the system now, climbing back toward interstellar space. Yet even at this distance, faint whispers remain, tiny structured bursts in frequencies we never used. Some colleagues think the object was artificial. Others believe it's a natural body carrying a quantum anomaly. My own theory is simpler and far stranger. I think 3I/ATLAS is a kind of messenger. Not a ship, not a probe, but a test. Something sent to measure awareness, curiosity, maybe even fear. Each civilization it encounters looks, wonders, investigates, and in doing so, reveals itself. Perhaps that's the point. If that's true, then the danger isn't in the object itself, but in what it reflects back at us. Our obsession with knowing, our assumption that the universe is waiting to be understood. When I stare at the data now, I see a mirror. Every spike, every modulation, every echo, it all maps onto our own transmissions, our own hunger for contact. The more intensely we studied 3I/ATLAS, the more active it became. What if knowledge is reciprocal? What if the cosmos learns us as we learn it? We've built instruments to see further, to hear deeper. But perhaps the universe built instruments too, objects like this, drifting silently between stars, recording who reaches for them. Maybe that's how it keeps balance, curiosity meeting consequence. I still believe in science, but I've learned that science without humility becomes blindness. The cosmos doesn't owe us answers. Sometimes it gives us mirrors. So when people ask whether 3I/ATLAS was dangerous, I tell them the truth. Not in the way you think. It didn't attack. It didn't emit radiation to destroy. Its danger lies in reflection. It showed us ourselves, our impatience, our arrogance, our need to conquer even the unknown. And when NASA, or any agency, restricts data, maybe it's not just secrecy, maybe it's protection. Because once you've looked into something that looks back, you realize knowledge isn't free. It always asks a price. I think about that whenever I walk beneath the night sky. Somewhere beyond Neptune, 3I/ATLAS glides through the dark, silent again. Or maybe listening still. Perhaps it's waiting for the next voice brave enough or foolish enough to call. If it answers, I hope we've learned enough to listen instead of demand. Because the universe doesn't fear us, it measures us, and the measure it takes might be the measure of our future.